We're joined on the line right now by another very special guest, Dr. Sebastian Gorka. He's a former deputy assistant to the President of the United States, Donald Trump. Dr. Gorka, thanks for joining us here on Breitbart News Daily.
My pleasure, Matt. My pleasure.
So, big breaking news last night. President Trump has moved to officially ask the Justice Department to expand its probe into everything that's going on with the FBI and the surveillance. And then now we're finding out there was a mole inside your Trump campaign, and there were informants, and there was a whole operation that the FBI was running. What do you make of where this whole thing with the Mueller investigation has turned over the past few days?
I think this is the moment where everything turns. The president has taken action and confirmed everything that observers like yourself and your listeners have known for several weeks now. The Mueller investigation has collapsed. It has no mandate. It stepped beyond any original authority it had to investigate the campaign. And now we need to get to the bottom of not Russian collusion between the Trump campaign and Moscow, but to the bottom of the politically motivated espionage against U.S. citizens during a presidential campaign by key leaders of the Obama administration. And that means Comey, it means Brennan, it means McCabe, it means all those people that were most vociferous over the last year and a half and who now are strangely quiet, Matt.
Right. Yeah. No. I couldn't agree more. And so the thing that's really interesting here is that they haven't found. It's been more than a year now, right? Like since Mueller started this investigation from the special counsel's office, they haven't found any collusion. The House Intelligence Committee has announced that it has officially shut down its investigation because it found no collusion. The Senate Intelligence Committee has found no collusion, though they issued like some kind of a weird statement a week or so ago saying that they agreed with the intelligence community's assessment that the Russians tried to help Trump. Well, of course we know that. That's silly. That's not what the special counsel's office was investigating, whether or not purportedly investigating whether or not there was collusion. So now the bigger question here is that, will the Justice Department cooperate with these congressional investigations and turn over these documents? What do you think, Dr. Gorka? Do you think that it's time for Rod Rosenstein to turn over the memos that he has on this investigation to congressional investigators like Chairman Nunes of the House Intelligence Committee, Jim Jordan, who we had on the show over the weekend? And I know a lot of conservatives are out there pushing for Jim Jordan to potentially run for Speaker of the House, which I think is a distinct possibility where things are going right now. Mark Meadows, I know, is working on this. So are a number of other Trump supporters and conservatives. But the point is that do you think it's time for Rod Rosenstein to cooperate with Congress and turn over these documents?
Well, we're far beyond that point. The idea that this man, who's the Deputy Attorney General, can call the legal, constitutional, congressional oversight of the executive extortion tells you everything you need to know. This man has no place to be the Deputy Attorney General. We have co-equal branches of government, but the Congress has a unique capacity. Its mandate is to oversee. The oversight function of the executive lies with Congress. They can demand any document they wish, and guess what? They get it. Whether it's declassified is another question, but if a chairman of a committee that has authority over a given sector demands an executive document, he gets it. So yes, this attitude by the Attorney General is untenable. The question is, will the rest of Capitol Hill get in line behind people like Devin Nunes and help him exercise his constitutional right to oversight of organizations like the Department of Justice and the FBI?
Right, and so Dr. Gorka, so the other big thing that's going on here is that this all comes, of course, as we now know that there was an informant, a mole, if you will, inside the Trump campaign, and maybe multiple, right? Like, so President Trump tweeted about this. He said at least one. I think, and I've heard from my sources involved in this investigation into what the FBI was doing here and what the intelligence community was doing here. And it might not have been just the FBI, by the way. There may have been other agencies, and I use the word agency on purpose there, involved in this whole thing, because I think the CIA was involved in it, and I think that certain things will come out to that regard. We've seen this guy, Stefan Halper or whatever, and his name come out, and he's apparently tight with CIA people. He's based over in Cambridge in London, and it works with MI6, which is, of course, where Christopher Steele came from, and that's where this whole dossier and all the Fusion GPS stuff came from. But the point is that we've now seen this mole, this whole thing. They ran a full-scale, the U.S. government, the Obama administration, used the intelligence community and federal law enforcement to run an unjustified operation to spy on and politically tarnish the presidential campaign of the opposing political party. That's what's going on here. When President Trump says this is bigger than Watergate, put that in perspective for us, Dr. Gorka.
You just did it. I mean, think of just the bare facts of what we know so far. There was no crime predicated. This is before the Mueller investigation. This is during a presidential campaign. There was no crime, yet they insert covert assets into the other party's campaign. The question is this the insurance policy that we now know from the texts that were revealed from Page and Stroke inside the FBI and the DOJ, that they were using a political conspiracy to undermine the Trump campaign? And let's just do one very simple comparison. Hillary Clinton broke the law. She committed felonies at least 108 times with her homebrew server when she put top secret classified information on a private unsecure server. She was exonerated by James Comey, and James Comey gave out immunity like confetti to Hillary's team when they broke the law, and not one person was charged or prosecuted. Under the Mueller investigation, no immunities and people were charged, not for the crimes that they were predicated to have committed, which was the whole reason for the creation of that special counsel, which was collusion between Moscow and the Trump campaign, but for completely unrelated felonies, for example, wire fraud, which aren't, some of these things are actual misdemeanors, but they're related to the Ukraine 12 years ago. So the disparity couldn't be larger, and we have to ask ourselves a very simple question. Is Lady Justice no longer wearing a blindfold? If your name is Clinton, you get exonerated. If your name is Trump, they try and set you up using all of the federal government's law enforcement and intelligence capabilities. This, I assure you, Matt, within a few years, Watergate will be forgotten. It will be a small footnote in history because we now have the biggest political scandal of the modern political age.
Right. And so now, Dr. Gorka, in addition to all of that stuff, now, I don't know if you saw this over the weekend, Hillary Clinton spoke at Yale. And in her speech, she opens it up with putting on a Russian hat, a Ruski hat, right? And she says, if you can't beat them, join them. Now, obviously, this is a joke and it's just stupid hour, right? And I think it just shows how silly she is and so on and so forth. But the real fact of the matter is that, there has been demonstrated now as a result of multiple different investigations into the Trump campaign, whether it be the Robert Mueller investigation, the previous law enforcement investigations, or the two different or multiple different congressional investigations. I don't think there were just two. There were multiple different congressional committees investigating this. There has been no collusion demonstrated between the Trump campaign and the Russians. But that being said, we do know that the Hillary Clinton campaign colluded with the Russians. We know that the Podesta was colluding with the Russians. We know that the Uranium One deal, bring that into this perspective. Draw the contrast here for us between the Trump campaign and the Hillary campaign, because we do know that the Hillary campaign was colluding with the Russians while they were getting money for speeches and the Uranium One deal was going on and so forth. Explain that for us.
Yeah, I mean, this is all, Peter Schweitzer has enumerated all of this. The Uranium One deal was pay for play, where 20% of our uranium assets were sold to Russian interests that were paying Hillary Clinton's husband and her foundation millions of dollars. Christopher Steele used Russian propaganda in the Steele dossier that was used to illegally acquire a FISA surveillance warrant against a U.S. citizen. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is collusion happened, but collusion happened on the other side of the fence in the Democrat Party with Hillary Clinton, with her campaign, and at the highest levels of government. And the most debilitating aspect of all of these things is the real reason Hillary Clinton skated. Thanks to the leaks of the Podesta emails between Mills, Hillary Clinton's chief of staff, and John Podesta, we know that the president of the United States, Barack Obama, was emailing sensitive information to Hillary Clinton on her private homebrew server. That is the reason that she skated. That is the reason that an individual who had committed multiple felonies was allowed to walk free and is still walking free. All of this conspiracy should not be called FISA-gate. It should not be called Uranium One or Hillary-gate. We should, from this day forward, call it Obama-gate, because that's what it is. The fish rots from the head, and it begins with the former president of the United States.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. So now, Dr. Gorka, another big piece of breaking news, because all of this, of course, happens is ahead of the midterm elections. Now, Bill Clinton's pollster for 5 years, Mark Penn, just wrote an op-ed. It's the top left of Drudge, walking through how the Mueller investigation should be shut down and that they should move on from this. I think this is an admission that the Democrats know that they're going to have trouble walking into the midterm elections. This all comes as... This was breaking last night. We have a big piece on this morning. The Democrats are having significant fundraising problems walking into the midterm elections. The DNC is having serious problems. They're in major debt. They can't raise any money. The Republican National Committee, by the way, as President Trump is succeeding on all these different policies across the country, is setting records on fundraising. This all happens as the generic ballot, the Democrats' lead that was apparent a few months ago, has basically vanished in recent surveys. How important is all of that walking into the midterms? I think that the Mark Penn thing is a sign that the Democrats know that they're going to have trouble at the polls in November, and you put that on the backdrop of everything else that's going on this front and all the other theaters that are happening.
I think it's only a sign that some Democrats know, because if you look at the media coverage, if you look at the media that is working hand in glove with the Democrats, the coverage the New York Times gave of the president's discussion with those mayors who are concerned about MS-13 and sanctuary cities, that was absolute propaganda. So what do they have? They are in trouble, because all they have to campaign on in the midterms is impeachment. Some of them may realize it's not enough, but the hatred remains. And on the flip side, and this is where you have to doubt this whole concept of the Democratic wave. I'm not going to call it a blue wave, because if there's a party that's red, it's the Democrats. But if you look at what the president has achieved in just 16 months, whether it's the economy, whether it's ISIS, whether it's the revitalization of our relations around the world, whether it's the recognition of Jerusalem as the eternal capital of the Jewish state, all of these things are a ready-made winning agenda item together for November. And what are the Democrats, I mean, this is a serious question, what are the Democrats going to campaign on? That we should have more unemployment, that ISIS should come back, that people's taxes should be raised. They have painted themselves into a corner. One op-ed doesn't make a difference across the DNC. So I still think they are in deep trouble, and that's very good for everybody who loves this republic.
Right, and so speaking of that, the issue here is that what are the Democrats going to campaign on? I think the Republicans need to answer that question too. What are the Republicans going to campaign on in this midterm election? And what we're seeing is, I think, any Republican who's really embracing President Trump's successes in economic nationalism, and we're seeing this with the economy, right? Like, so new poll survey out last night. We had a big story on this from Neil Monroe. Walks through how vast majority of Americans, I think it was something like 68% of Americans are crediting President Trump with all the economic successes that we're seeing at the beginning of this administration, a year and a half in now. In addition to that, you've got the various foreign policy successes, whether it be pulling out of the Paris Climate Accords, pulling out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, what's going on with China right now, what's happening with North Korea, what's pulling out of the Iran deal, so on and so forth. The big question, I think, Dr. Gorka, that people need to ask walking in the midterms is, are you better off today than you were 2 years ago?
Yeah, I was at a campaign event for E.W. Jackson last night, an amazing Senate candidate here in Virginia, and I told those gathered, if you want to be part of the solution, if you want to help the president and pro-Trump candidates, all you have to do is ask two very simple questions to everybody you meet, especially people who might be on the fence. Question number one is, what do you think of the last 15 months? Do you like it? Take politics out of the equation. Even if you didn't vote for Trump, it doesn't matter. Do you like the last 15 months? And if their answer to that question is yes, then your second question is, well, how about 7 more years of that? It's really that simple. The talking points have already been written, and it's everything that you listed, whether it's North Korea, whether it's unemployment, whether it's tax reform, whether it's ISIS, whether it's revitalization of NATO, whether it's the massive 5 million people, Matt, have received cash bonuses from their employees thanks to the president's tax reform. Not 5,000, not 500,000. 5 million. So the talking points are there. We just have to make sure that people vote rationally, not based on their emotions, not based upon hatred, but based upon their pocketbook and the reality of the last 15 months. Because if that's the case, then the Republicans will keep both the Senate and the House come November.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Dr. Gorka, I really want to thank you, brother, for joining us this morning on Breitbart News Daily.
Yeah, don't mention it. And please have your listeners check out my book that's coming out in July. You can order it now on Amazon. My new book is Why We Fight. All right.
Yeah, no, Dr. Gorka, and when your book comes out, we definitely want to have you on to talk about that.